what? You're going to love hearing about the return of the gods with Jonathan Cahn. You know, for every god or idol that we've seen throughout history, there is always a dark spirit tied to it. And the same dark spirits that led God's people astray in ancient Israel is now undermining the very foundational beliefs of our families, our churches, and our nation today. Here to reveal more behind this and how we can combat it, let's welcome best-selling author, prophetic voice, and our dear friend, Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. Hi. Oh, it's always so good to have you.
An honor to be here. Always, it's like coming home.
Oh, we love you so
Likewise.
much. And I tell you what, I have listened to my producer talk about this book, and she is so excited about it, The Return of the Gods. And I know, Becca, you're excited to talk about this as well.
Yes.
I mean,
I even remember last time you were here, you alluded to this project, and I was like, I cannot wait for this book to be done. And I think out of all the ones you've done, I think this is going to be my favorite one.
Okay, well, I'm going to read you something, and then I want you to jump in because it goes right along with what you're going to be talking about. But this was sent to me by a partner. You partners are amazing. You send me every news article to tell me what's going on, things I would never see if it wasn't for you. So thank you. This is someone that sent this in. D.C. Children's Hospital offered gender-affirming hysterectomies for kids, but the audio and deleted web page, of course, reveal, or they actually took it down as soon as people started finding it. But it says the Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. offered gender-affirming hysterectomies for kids between the ages of 0 to 21. A recently deleted web page shows this information. An archived web page from August 18th on Children's National Hospital's website listed gender-affirming medical care, gender-affirming hysterectomy among the services offered for patients between the ages of 0 to 21 through the hospital's gynecology program. The webpage was recently modified and no longer states that the program offers gender-affirming hysterectomies for kids. And in a phone call with hospital staff, the Libs of TikTok founder asked how young someone can be in order for doctors to perform a gender-affirming hysterectomy. The worker said that hysterectomies have been performed on children who are younger than the age of 16. Asked about the recording, a hospital spokesperson said the call reflects a call with hospital operators. And so they're trying to get out of that because it was on the website and now they've taken it down because there's been such outcry. You know what? We have a very small window to cry out, and that's really what your book is about, isn't it? So talk about, just start with, which of the gods do you want to start with?
Well, I could say this is like madness, you know, what you just read. And it's happening all over. Happening in Boston, same thing happened. The hospital then took it down. It is crazy, and they call it gender affirming. It's the opposite. It's gender destroying, you know. But people are saying, you know, what's going on? What's happening in the world? And even it's not just Christians, conservatives and liberals, even old school liberals are saying this is madness. What's happening? So what this is, and what we talked about last time, is, you know, I knew this is the time because we are in this window, as you said. What if behind all these things, all this craziness, all this madness, all these things that have been happening to transform America lies this ancient mystery that goes back to ancient Babylon, ancient Mesopotamia. What if the gods that, you know, we think about as fiction, we think about as, you know, these are just fictional things. What if there's actually something real to them? What if these are real entities? And what if we could know which gods they were? What if they returned to America? What if they returned to now? What would happen to America? And if we could know which gods we're dealing with, we would have, first of all, an advantage to do that. And what if this is affecting every believer? Because what we're talking about right now affects every single person watching right now.
And you're talking about little gods. We're talking about dark spirits. We're talking about demonic spirits that infiltrated ancient Israel. They're still around, folks. They're still around, and they have come to perform some of the same duties that they performed with ancient Israel.
Exactly. One of the things is that people don't realize, I mean, the Bible speaks about gods. Now, there's one God, but then there are these things that are called gods. Well, the Bible actually reveals a mystery, and sometimes we miss it. In the Hebrew Scriptures and in the New Testament, Hebrew scripture that says that when they were worshiping these gods, it says they were actually worshiping the shedim, Hebrew word that speaks of entities or spirits, and they're always evil, you know. And then when it was translated into Greek, they use the word daimonia, which actually Paul uses when he says the Gentiles or the pagans worship these things. They're actually worshiping the daimonia. We get the word demon, demonic from it. So when we think about gods, there's actually something very real about it. And when you look back, you know, think about this. If all the pagan world, like everywhere in the world, they were all worshiping gods. I mean, except for Israel, and then they turned. But all around the world, there were, why? You know, and so what it means is if these were spirits behind them, they're all given to the spirits. They were all possessed. All these cultures were possessed. Even Western culture, you know, back then was possessed except for Israel. So the thing is that when you look back at these pagan gods worshiping things, you see the signs of possession. Even their high priests, the oracles, they would shake, they would utter these things. So that's all there. And the only thing that changed that was Jesus. When Jesus came, you know, he had the power, it says of ekbalao in Greek, to cast out the spirits. And when he sent the gospel into the world, it was like God coming head to head with the gods. And that's why when the Christians came in the Roman Empire, there was such warfare because the gods were warring against them. You know, they said, you know, bow down or we kill you, to the gods. That was the issue, you know. And so there was this warfare going on. And by God's grace, the gospel prevailed. So now think about what that means. If the gospel prevailed, all the gods started departing. You know, the temples were empty, Zeus, all gone. But that means that the spirits were being cast out. So this was the greatest mass exorcism in history. And that's why our culture, Western culture, is unique because it's the only culture that was exorcised, free. You know, when you go to other cultures, you see these things. So that puts us in a very unique thing. But then there's a warning that Jesus gave. Remember the parable when he said that a spirit comes out of a man, it goes around looking for a place, doesn't find it, says it's going to go back, I'm going to go back to my house, to the guy, but it goes back, finds it empty and clean, says, I'm going to bring back my friends, seven more evil spirits worse than the first. Now we picture that's talking about a man, and it is. But he's actually says, so it will be with this generation, this generation. So here's the thing to put it all together. And that is that if you take that to the largest thing, our culture was delivered like that man from the spirits. We were exorcised. But here's the warning. If we ever turn away from God, if we ever turn back, if we ever turn Western civilization, America, if we ever turn, then the spirits are going to return to our culture. Then the gods that were cast out are going to, and that's exactly what's been happening.
Okay, so let's go back and let's talk about some of the gods. Let's talk about Baal with ancient Israel, and let's talk about how Baal has infiltrated America, and the world.
Well, in the book I talk about the dark trinity, and he's the first, because when you read the Bible, Baal is always first. Baal comes in, he's like that spirit that says, I'm going to bring my friends. So he comes first.
And Lucifer always copies everything, like you said, the dark trinity. And we know the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. He always copies everything.
That's right. For Baal. And actually, the name for Lucifer, you know, when Jesus said Beelzebub, that comes from Baal. Baal, these are masks, you know, these are masks here. So Baal is the one he's the one who came into Israel and turned them away from God. He's the substitute God. He's the anti-God. He's the one who said, I'm going to give you prosperity, turn to me. And he turned them from God to materialism, to sensuality, to vulgarize their culture. So he comes there. So what would happen if Baal came back? You know, if America was patterned after Israel. If it turns away from God, this is coming back. So when did we really start turning away from God? Look at the early 60s. We say, let's take prayer out of school. Little thing, right? Let's take the word out. Well, when we did that, we opened the door. And the spirit of Baal or Baal comes in. And I call him in the book the possessor, because that's what the name means. He comes in to possess America. And so what did Baal do? He came in and he seeks to, the first thing, he seeks to drive God out of everything. He warred against God. Remember, you know, in the days of Elijah? So all of a sudden, there's a spirit driving God out of everything. God at the public square, out of a culture, you know, God used to be everywhere, you know, in American culture. You know, think about that.
On our money, in God we trust.
On our money, And when you look back in the 1950s, you know, we would say, well, this is a Christian nation, you know. But Baal's, the agenda of Baal is to take a Christian nation and turn it into a pagan nation. So what happens, so he starts driving that out. But also, it's infiltrated us in deep ways to paganize us, like even wokeism. I'll give you an example. And back then, if you have one God, you have one truth. But if you have a lot of gods, then you have many truths. There's no one truth. Everything really, I have my own authentic truth. I have my authentic truth. You know, in the pagan world, you could actually make your God. You actually make your truth.
That's why we have many pronouns now.
Many pronouns, right.
Insane.
Yeah, and we have to say, well, if a man says I'm a woman, well, that's his authentic truth. If he says I'm a tree, that's his authentic truth. That's paganism. That's what they did back then. They made their own truth. You know, and also when you take God out, everything becomes God. Sex becomes God. Money becomes God. We're in this thing.
Idolatry.
Everything, yeah. And actually, at the same time in the 60s, when you do that, you start then seeing New Age. All these things start coming in, Eastern things. That's all paganism. And the name Baal or Baal means Lord, possessor, master. So what's happened to America, you know, the promise was, hey, I'm going to give you freedom. It always comes in like, hey, be open-minded. But in the end, we end up being possessed. We end up being driven by, we're more addicted now, we're more driven than ever. We have many Baals. And I'll give you one like sign of Baal. The sign of Baal back then was a bull. He was represented by, there's supposed to be power, bronze molten bull. Well, actually, if you go to New York City, you will see the sign of Baal. That massive bronze molten bull is the sign of Baal, that he's taken over the culture right near Wall Street. And actually, he was the god of prosperity. What do we call a good market? A bull market. He was bull. That's Baal. They actually they took part of the temple of Baal and recreated it in New York City as well. So we are a culture that has been possessed by the spirit of Baal. And that's what turned us away. But he's only the first. And of course, we can only give a taste of, we're only giving a taste, but there's another.
Go.
Okay.
Yes.
The next one is a she. It's a goddess. And this is called in the book the enchantress. And when you look in the Bible about when Israel turned away from God, first is Baal, but then there's next one is Ashtoreth. It was his Baal and Ashtoreth. Ashtoreth was also known as Ishtar. She's all over the place. She's also known as Aphrodite in the Greek, also known as Venus. And she's the god of sexual immorality. And so what happens is, she's actually called the prostitute or harlot goddess. And what happens is Baal comes in, she's actually known as the wife of Baal in the mythology. When first Baal comes, then the next one to come in is this goddess. And so what's gonna happen if she comes in? Well, what happened is, something's gonna happen in America with sexuality. There's gonna be a sexual revolution. And that's exactly what happens, like clockwork. First Baal, first turn from God, take him out of the schools, take him out of and then comes the goddess. Then comes the sexual revolution. She was a harlot goddess. So therefore, a prostitute, takes sex out of marriage and puts it into the culture. So our culture becomes sexualized.
Yeah.
Marriage becomes weakened. That is all the goddess. And in fact, back then, when she was called the prostitute. In Greek, the name is porn or porne. We get pornography from this goddess. The first pornography in the world was the writings about this goddess. She's the one who multiplied images of naked people back then. So the spirit of Ashtoreth, she possesses a culture by seducing it. And so that's why people are so, addicted to pornography. That's the goddess. And here's another thing. We get the word erotic, from erotic, where our cultures become sexualized. Well, that comes from the Greek eros. In mythology, Eros was a god who was the son of this goddess. So this goddess produces erotic, produces porn, and she's also known as a sorceress. She was the goddess of witchcraft. So what happens is when the same time, 60s, same time you have the sexual revolution, you have revival of witchcraft in America. There are more witches now than there are Presbyterians in America. And she's also the goddess of intoxication. She seduces so you have a revival of addiction, drugs. There's more drug abuse now than there has ever been. So all these things come with a goddess. She is the seducer. And I'm just giving a little taste, but that's the second goddess, and there's much more to her, but that's a little taste of it.
Okay, so just continue on with all the different.
What's the third one?
Yeah.
The third is called the destroyer. And this is the one that if you go to pagan culture, you'll see it's common to offer up human sacrifice. It's actually common to offer up children. If you were a child, back then you were not safe in pagan society. You were not safe in any way. And you could be offered up at birth, you could be offered up after birth, you could be offered up before birth. Abortion was back then. That was a pagan thing. What happened? The only thing actually even go before that. So when Israel turned away from God, what did they do? They started offering up their children. It says they passed their children through the fire to this God who was called, Molech, who's the god they put their children on the altar. And so here's the thing. When the gospel came, it drove that all out. The only thing that ended child sacrifice was the gospel.
Yeah.
That's it. That ended human sacrifice. But here's the warning. If we turn away from God, it's coming back. And at the same time, at the same moment that we start turning away from God, you have Baal turning away from God. You have the goddess, sexual revolution, leads right to the third. The third one is abortion comes to America. Molech comes to America. And all of a sudden, 1970, it's abortion on demand. 1973, Roe. And so all of a sudden we are offering up our children to the gods, just like this is paganism.
Yeah.
We're offering, and I said, well, how can you compare? They offered up thousands. We've offered up 63 million of them. So this, remember, they come back stronger. They come back 7 times or 8 times. And the other thing is that when I looked at the ancient way they did this child sacrifice, that links up to what's happening now. There's a certain way they did it. There's a certain way that the parents did it. That's the way it's happening now. Actually, I'll throw this in, that one of the things was that if you look back, the poor children were more offered up than rich children. They actually they actually paid for poor children to be offered up. Today, Molech, he's number one, he's a racist, and he's against the poor. More poor children are being offered up to him than any other children. Same God, same principality.
Wow. So, we talked last time you were here about Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
And you said that was huge for America.
Yes.
And you write this book in hopes that people watching and people listening will awaken to what's going on, and how that what happened in ancient Israel is being repeated.
Yeah.
And the only thing that can turn that is a great awakening.
The only thing that can save America is revival. Yes, revival. When I finished the book, the day I finished the book, and by the way, this is again, obviously it's to empower God's people, and to wake up, and to, not just to be like a mind-blowing thing, but to actually arm yourself, because you're dealing with this. Everyone's dealing with it. And if you don't know what you're dealing with, it's very hard to fight. Everyone, not just every person, but every family, every relative, there's people in our lives. So the thing is that we need to know. And the thing is that this is about against the altars. And the greatest altar we have to the gods is abortion. Actually, the altar. On the day that I finished it on June 24th, the day that I finished it, abortion was over. Roe v. Wade was overturned. The altar was broken.
Wow.
Which was huge for you. Huge for you. And what I keep sensing as you're talking is that God is calling you into this battle. Like, you were designed and created to be alive right now, to help stand up for truth and to arm yourself. I mean, people not only need to reach out to those around them, but people need to get involved in the political arena. I know you believe in that very strongly.
Yes.
They need to vote.
Yes.
I mean, because right now with the administration that we have in power, then, and I'm not saying God's a Republican or Democrat. Don't hear that, because I'm not saying that. Obviously, he's not either one. But I'm just saying that we have to look at policies.
Yes.
Because policies affect people. And if they affect people, we're going to be concerned about that.
Yeah.
And so we have to look at the policies that are most aligned with the Word of God. It's not a popular message, but I'm going to keep preaching it. I'm going to keep talking about it. But I mean, it is an awakening for the body of Christ in a way like never before. We have got to stand up now.
Yes. And think about it. All these things we're talking about were changed 2,000 years ago by Christians, by the gospel through God's people in Rome. All these things we're talking about. We're watching almost like the reversal of everything that happened when Rome was Christianized. We're watching the de-Christianization. So we were affecting it then. We are not of politics, we're not of the world, but we are a light to the world. We're a light to politics. If we're not affecting, what are we doing here? Why are we here? So God, we've been on the defense, so long. I mean, so much of the body is just, okay, I want to talk about it. If we don't talk about it, it's just the gods are coming in. Yeah. That's what's happening. And that tells you, because when God gets out, when you create a vacuum, the gods come in. We have to bring God into everything.